Welcome to the Cybele Health Podcast, where we share science-backed tools and expert insights to empower women's health and elevate their lives.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Today is a very interesting topic that we had at Cybele Health with Dr. Sophia Yen. She is one of the faculty members of one of the most important universities here in Palo Alto with us today. She's also the co-founder of Pandia Health. They provide personalized birth control and menopause treatments for women. And we are very excited to have you on our podcast today. Sophia, thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited.
Great, awesome. So we start our podcast with several short questions. You can only answer yes or no. And it's going to be very exciting. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, awesome. So the first question, can birth control pills help regulate menstrual cycle?
Absolutely, yes.
Awesome. Do birth control pills protect against sexually transmitted infection?
Birth control pills, patch, ring, IUD, implant, shot do not protect against sexually transmitted infection. No.
No. Is it safe to take birth control pills while breastfeeding?
Yes, it is safe, but we prefer the progesterone only pill.
Okay. Are there different types of birth control pills available on the market? Or let's say US market.
Yes, in the United States, there are at least 40 different pills, 8 different progesterones.
Okay. And then I have 2 more questions. Can birth control pills be used to treat conditions such as endometriosis for women?
Yes, absolutely.
The last question, do birth control pills require prescription from a healthcare provider here in the US?
So this is the new thing. As of 2024, you do not need a prescription for one, but the 40 other ones, you do need a prescription.
Okay. Thank you. So it was really a good kind of fact check with you. So just tell us a little bit about your journey. What inspired you to start a startup focused on AI powered and personalized birth control treatments for women?
Yeah, so the big story was I am a professor. I teach other physicians how to write prescriptions, how to take care of young people, how to prevent unplanned pregnancy. And the question came up, why don't women take their birth control? And one of the top reasons was didn't have it in their hand, didn't have time to run to the pharmacy every single month. And I even coined the term hashtag pill anxiety. You get to that last week of pills, and if you don't get to the pharmacy, you risk getting pregnant. And that's a hair on fire moment. And so my friend and I were like, we could solve this. We will just open a mail order pharmacy and we will ship women birth control and keep shipping until they tell us to stop. And then we ran ads, free birth control delivery, and 60% of the women that responded did not have a prescription. And it's like, don't you know you need a prescription in the United States to get birth control? And so as a doctor, I could write prescriptions, and thus Pandia Health was born. And then after writing 3,000 birth control prescriptions, because I was the first doctor on the platform writing all the prescriptions, and being an academic and coming from MIT, UCSF, and Stanford, those backgrounds, then I just couldn't just sit there and write these prescriptions and watch these side effects. And we realized that most of medicine is based on a 70-kilo white male. And certainly for birth control, not 70 kilo, not white male, but certainly not of Asian, not of Black descent. And I spoke to my fellow Asian and Black doctors, and we're like, oh yeah, that pill we're teaching all the medical students and residents to write for doesn't work for our people. We get the side effect. And so I took all the birth control pills, ranked them from most likely make you bleed, least likely make you bleed. Most likely give you munchies, least likely give you munchies. Most likely give you zits, least likely give you zits. And then fixed it for the side effect that we were seeing in people of color. And with that, we see 82% retention at a year versus the standard 30 to 50% retention at a year. And we do a 10-week follow-up. So at 10 weeks, we go, are you having munchies? Are you having breakthrough bleeding? Are you having acne? And if so, our doctors know what to do, which to bump up, what to bump down to suggest the next birth control pill for you. But most of the time, people are really happy with that first pill we're doing. And that's with age, BMI, how often you want to bleed, and race as a proxy for genetics. But the next thing we're doing, as you've mentioned, is your field, is AI. We are asking our patients that have genetics. So if you have 23andMe, DNA ancestry, et cetera, to give us your genetics. And then we can load it in our system and go, oh, people with this genetics like this birth control pill. So the next person that comes in, we can be like, oh, you have this genetics. This is the best birth control pill for you. So that's what we're developing, but we already have an algorithm that's pretty good 82% of the time, and we're going to make it even better.
Wow, that's very exciting. Awesome. I can't wait actually to try it out myself. So we are here in the US, and there are lots of stories around abortion rights, and as a woman, our rights to our body in terms of pregnancy. And I would like to provide a chance for our audience at least to know what are their rights. And so how many different options are available today?
For birth control, I think it's so important that everybody hashtag get your birth control under control. I'm all about hashtags. And that way we can prevent the need for most abortions, because most abortions are a result of unplanned pregnancy, though certainly some are from sexual assault. And so the most effective birth control, quiz your doctor on this, and a lot of doctors are learning this, is the implant. And so most people wouldn't know that the implant beats vasectomy. Vasectomy is the gold surgical standard. And the implant, which looks like this, it's the size of a toothpick, and it's thin and it's bendy, and it goes in your arm here and you can actually feel it. That's what this demo thing is, but mainly this size. This implant goes into your arm and it lasts for 3 years. And it has a really good hormone in it, the one that we actually like prescribing to people to decrease side effects when they go in the pill form. Then comes vasectomy. Then comes the hormonal IUD, which I have a demo of that one too. Look how small it is, the size of my palm. That's the hormonal IUD. Doesn't come in purple, comes in white. But this is to tell you this is not real. Do not stick this in anyone. But this is the size and the shape of it. And that one beats tubal ligation, which is the surgical permanent sterilization in somebody with tubes, where we cut out an inch on each side, burn it, throw it away, and people still get pregnant on that, which is crazy. It tells you how fertile the body is and how much the body really wants to get pregnant when it wants to get pregnant. Then comes the copper IUD, then comes the shot, then comes the ring, then comes the birth control patch. I have all my goodies today. The birth control patch, and then comes the birth control pill, then comes condoms, and then fertility awareness method, rhythm, etc. And then abstinence, one could argue, is 100% effective, but in research, when you ask somebody to take an abstinence pledge, it only is good as the pledge.
So there are a variety of options. What about the emergency contraception?
So it's really important for people to know that emergency contraception is not the same thing as medication abortion. So emergency contraception is, I forgot to take my pill for 3 days in a row, or I couldn't get in to get my shot in time, or my IUD or implant has expired. It's beyond the time that you're allowed to use them. Or, you forgot to use something. Within 5 days of contraceptive failure or whatever, sexual assault or some sort of accident, you can use the 4 different options for emergency contraception. And most people only know 2 or 3 of these. And so the most effective emergency contraception is the copper IUD. So if you can get to a doctor's office, get to an emergency room and be like, oh my gosh, the condom popped, I don't want to be pregnant, throw up a copper IUD. It's 99.99999% effective in preventing unplanned pregnancy within 5 days of contraceptive failure. And then you could also use the hormonal IUD. It has like a 3 out of 313 failure, I believe. Next comes the prescription emergency contraception, Ella. And I don't work for them. I just want people not to get pregnant. So Ella is prescription, but because it's prescription, thanks to the Affordable Care Act, any FDA approved birth control, if you have insurance, is available with no copay, no deductible, as long as you're not demanding a name brand when a generic is available. So know that if your doctor prescribes Ella, it's free if you have insurance, no copay, no deductible. And it beats Plan B and its generics, the emergency contraception that people most know, at every single time point. So if it were me, my daughter, my friend, anyone listening to this talk, Ella beats anything you can get over the counter. And you can ask your doctor to write it for in advance of need. And so we always write, please give the patient the one with the farthest expiration date. Because if you walk into the pharmacy, they'll be like, here, take the one that expires tomorrow, because they think you're going to eat it today. But if you actually ask for a far expiration date, they can give you one that's 2 years expiration date. And then if your insurance doesn't cover it, it's like $35 to $50, but that's cheaper than pregnancy. So that, and then comes Plan B and its generics. The thing to know about the over-the-counter emergency contraceptives is that they have a BMI limit, body mass index. So just type in your height and your weight. It'll give you a number. If it's 26 or greater, the emergency contraception over-the-counter does not work so well. If it's 30 or greater, it does not work at all. So if your BMI is 30 or greater, your only option is Ella. And then if your BMI is 35 or greater, then your only option is the IUD, the hormonal or the copper being the best.
You explained like a variety of different options for women in terms of birth control. And today, if a woman goes to OB-GYN and asks for birth control, it's going to be either one of those. And what sets Pandia Health is that you do personalization. So I would like to understand how the current approach, what is the current approach missing that we need to bring on more advanced technologies such as the one that you have at Pandia Health?
Yes. So currently, as I alluded to, when you go to medical school, what most of us are taught is that just pick a birth control pill, prescribe that to everybody. And if the patient doesn't like it, then try something else. And so most doctors know 2 birth control pills, one that they like or that they were taught, and then the backup one in case that one doesn't work. But as I mentioned, there's 40, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 40 different birth control pills, 8 different progesterones. So it's really important, you know, when you don't like a pill, you'd be like, what does it say on here? Oh, it says levonorgestrel. I don't like that one. That one gives me the munchies and zits. Or, oh, this one, drospirenone. I like it. It helps with my acne, but it makes me want to pee a lot. So I don't know, so it's like, know what you like, know what you don't like, know that all birth control pills are not the same, that there are 8 different birth control pills, 2 different dosages often of the estrogen, sometimes 2 different dosages of the progesterone. And really it's a progesterone that makes the side effects because most of them have the same estrogen that's in them. It's just 2 different levels. And what's different about Pandia Health is we are the only academic for-profit led company in this field. And all I've done for the past 8 years is birth control. Your doctor does birth control. They do pap smears. They deliver babies. They do runny nose. They do all sorts of things. All I've done is birth control. And I've written a lot of birth control prescriptions. And because I'm a woman of color, I'm sensitive to, I'm not a Caucasian female. And that's probably what the standard is for this. And therefore, I've learned amongst my people, it doesn't work that way. And we've come up with this algorithm based on your age, because I'm an adolescent medicine specialist. And so really important random Pandia public service announcement, as I like to say, is check your birth control pill and see how many micrograms of estrogen. If you're under the age of 30, we recommend 30 micrograms of estrogen until 30 for your bone strength, because you're building up your bone bank and then you lose it after about age 30, you start losing it. And so if you don't get enough estrogen, you can't build up that bank. So you want at least 30 micrograms of estrogen until 30, because oftentimes patients come in and they're like, give me the lowest amount of estrogen. And the doctor's like, okay, that decreases your risk of blood clots, but also why not? You asked for it. Okay. But they don't realize, because they're not adolescent medicine specialists and know that the adolescent medicine specialists at Stanford in adolescent medicine, pediatric adolescent gynecology, pediatric endocrinology all recommend 30 micrograms of estrogen until 30 years old. So that's one differentiator. The other differentiator is we've come up with this algorithm, as I mentioned, and we've trained all of our physicians on the Pandia Health platform how to choose a pill based on your age, body mass index, how often you want to bleed. We ask each patient, do you want to bleed every month, every 2 months, every 3 months, every 6 months, or never? Because the week of bleeding this last week is just sugar pills usually, or iron pills, totally arbitrary. And you can bleed every month, or you can bleed every 3 months, or every 6 months, or never. I personally have not bled for the past 14 years since my last child because I don't like to bleed. So, and so that's our beginning algorithm with the 40 different rankings, with the munchies, the zits, and breakthrough bleeding. And then our next iteration, as I mentioned before, will be using genetic information. And we think part of it has to do with your liver function tests, but they've also shown androgenic receptors vary by race, ethnicity, by race.
Awesome. Very amazing and interesting too. So you mentioned you can choose when to bleed and how often to bleed. And I also noticed that you have a TEDx talk about #periods optional. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? Is it safe not to bleed?
So the complicated part is if you're not on any medication about pills, hormones, whatnot, then you should bleed every single month. The caveat there, again, I'm adolescent medicine. Within the first 2 years of your first period, your period can be totally weird and crazy. But if it's coming every single month and then it's done that for 6 months in a row and all of a sudden it goes away, then you definitely need to see a doctor to get that worked up. Number one, pregnancy. But number two, could be thyroid, could be weight loss, could be weight gain, could be a tumor in your head. These are all the causes of your period going away when it shouldn't. However, if we decide to put you on the birth control pill, patch, ring, the hormonal IUD, the implant, or the shot, then you can make #periods optional. With the implant and the IUD, it's about 30% of people have no periods and and then the other 70% is lighter. The hormonal IUD is actually a treatment for heavy periods because it makes it lighter. And then with the shot, about your third shot, 75% of those people who use that method for birth control have no periods whatsoever. And then with the pill, as I mentioned, there's 8 different progesterones, 40 different pills. I'm pretty sure I can find one of them that works for your body that allows you to not bleed at least every 3 months. Sometimes people are affected by roommates or other people that they work with. Anybody you spend 8 hours in a small room with can, I believe, infect you with their period. So it is fine to make #periods optional if you're on the birth control pill, patch, ring, the hormonal IUD, the shot, or the implant, because actually we were meant to have fewer periods than we currently have. We were only supposed to have about 100 periods in our lives, and we're currently having 350 to 400 periods. And so the reason why is we used to be pregnant with 8 babies. And how many periods you have when you're pregnant? 0. And we used to breastfeed for 12 to 18 months. How many periods you have when you're exclusively breastfeeding every 2 to 3 hours? 0. And so all that time we were pregnant or breastfeeding, no periods. But now we have 2 kids. We don't breastfeed that much. And so we have 350 to 400 periods, enough periods for 3 other women, which is way too much. And every time you build that lining, it can mutate and turn into cancer. Every time you pop an egg, it can, we don't know if it's the popping or the tubes, it can turn into cancer. So by decreasing this building and up and building and up and the pop and the pop and the pop, then we decrease our risk of ovarian and endometrial cancer. And in fact, if you ask any educated physician, how do I decrease my risk of ovarian cancer? They will say, go on the birth control pill, patch, or ring for 5 years, decrease the popping, and that will decrease the risk of ovarian cancer by 50%.
Wow, this is very interesting. Obviously, all of these have not been talked a lot about. But specifically, you mentioned about endometriosis, and one of my friends was dealing with that last year, and her doctor recommended getting pregnant. I guess the reason is to stop bleeding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that only works for 9 months and then only for
Yeah.
however much you breastfeed exclusively
Mhm.
for. And so that's the way the birth control pill works, is it keeps your hormone levels stable. And then when you drop it
Mhm.
by day 2 or 3 on your placebo pill, that drop, your body goes, oh, there's no more hormone, so I'm going to bleed. And so for endometriosis, you don't want the little endometriomas, which is lining of your uterus in places it doesn't belong. So in your abdomen, sometimes you can get in your brain, sometimes you can get in your lungs. It's crazy. And it goes up and down, up and down, up and down
Mhm.
without hormones. But if you're on a stable hormone, no up and down, up and down, up and down. And so that's why for her, I would recommend, other than being pregnant, she could be on constant hormones, either through the hormonal IUD, the implant, or with the birth control pill or ring. You can do it with the patch. You can only do it for 3 months in a row. And then the hormone builds up in your blood. So you have to stop, have a week off, and then you can do it again. But with the pill, you can do it indefinitely. With the ring, you can do it indefinitely. And for the implant and the IUD, it works often. But like I mentioned, 70% of the time it doesn't, and you bleed, and then there's some up and down. So that's not as good.
Okay, thank you. So we talked a lot about like different options, but what are the non-contraceptive benefits of birth control?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to rename birth control pills instead of birth control pills or oral contraceptive pills. We call one group of pill progesterone only pills. And I think we should
Mhm.
call this one, which is your normal birth control pill, estrogen progesterone pills. So then we take away the stigma of birth control. We take away the politics of oral contraceptive, because exactly as you mentioned, women use this for other reasons. They use it for
Mhm.
endometriosis. They use it for polycystic ovarian syndrome. That affects 1 in 10 women in the United States will get polycystic ovarian syndrome before you die. And with a greater propensity of obesity in this country, there's even more people that are at risk of polycystic ovarian syndrome because the insulin causes PCOS in many of the
Mhm.
cases. And then it's also good for acne. They've also shown stable hormones is good for depression, for headaches. Skipping your monthly bleed is good if you have bad, evil periods, as I like to call them. Really, really heavy periods, really, really painful periods. The number one cause of anemia in a menstruating woman is menstruation. And so if we turn off that monthly bleed, then we turn off your risk for anemia. And then the other thing I realize is the only reason those of us with uteri bleed every month in our reproductive years is we build that lining. And we're like, embryo? Oh, no embryo. Bleed. And then we build it up again. And then we bleed. And then we build it up. And we bleed. And we don't need to do this up and down, up and down, up and down every month if we're not trying to catch an embryo. Because on average in the United States, we have 2 babies, and we usually have them starting at age 26. So why are we bleeding from age 12 to 26? Why are we bleeding from age 30 to 50 every single month, risking endometrial uterine cancer as well as ovarian cancer? And then this gives me an opportunity to bring up colorectal cancer. So your colon is around your uterus. So you see my uterus here, and imagine a colon around it. And as the uterus goes up and down, the colon's like, oh, I'm sorry for you, is the way I like to think of it. And the colon either runs faster, diarrhea, or runs slow, or constipation. And when you speed things up or slow things down, you increase your risk of colon cancer. So by decreasing up and down, up and down, up and down, and bleeding every month, then you decrease the colon being affected as well. And so that decreases your risk of ovarian, endometrial, and colorectal cancer.
Okay, thank you. It was really great hearing all of this information. Obviously, I don't think anyone has experience going into that detail of how our body works, and it's amazing to hear that. Thank you for sharing. Um, can you share with us some of the stories of the patients that has success stories, like going through the treatment, personalized treatment that you provide at Pandia Health?
So we are proud that about 45 to 50% of our patients are women of color. And I think they come to us because the system has failed them. Also, if you have any side effects on the birth birth control pills, you don't have to hashtag suck it up, hashtag stop sucking it up. Know that there are 8 different progesterones. And if you don't like one of them, tell your doctor, I don't like this one, and then tell them what dose, because as I mentioned, there's usually 2 different dosages, and then try the other 7. But if you want the experts who will give you the one with the least risk of having side effects, and I'd say most of our patients have no side effects whatsoever. Most people have no side effects. I'd say about, actually the research shows 23% get side effects from birth control pills. But if you come to us, it's going to be far fewer, because we know how to adjust according to your body mass index, according to your bleeding preferences, and this algorithm that we've worked out, and this algorithm that we're going to improve as we add genetics to it.
That's very interesting. My background is in AI, and I get always excited hearing all the advancement that AI can bring to people's life, but especially for women and especially for women's health. So my next question is, how do you see AI and the recent advancement evolving in the field of women's healthcare in the future?
I think for me, the huge thing for AI is customizing by genetics, because we have all these data points and we can look at your liver, we can look at your androgen receptor, we can look at how your body chews up drugs. We can also look at interactions between your different drugs. And then, as you know, when you throw something with AI ML, it's sometimes nobody knows why, and it can't explain itself, but it can tell you on an X-ray that this woman is of African American heritage. And it's like, what? How does it know these things? But it comes up with the best algorithm. So I'm excited with AI ML's ability to help suggest the best drug, suggest the best treatment, given your history. It's just we need to make sure that the AI is trained on diverse people, that people are categorized correctly. Because right now, Asians are all lumped into one. But as you may or may not know, people who are South Asian have a low HDL. People who are Japanese have a high HDL, and the high HDL protects against heart disease, and the low HDL puts you at risk of heart disease. So if you lump these two in the same thing, then you may average out and you'll be like, oh, they have normal risk. But actually, if you separated it into genetics from Japanese heritage, genetics from South Asian heritage, you would see that they're very different groups. So it's really important that all groups be represented, because the result that it gives you is only as good as the data that you train it on. And one of the examples I give is we had these bright-eyed, bushy-tailed undergrad students, and we're going to do a model on polycystic ovarian syndrome, and we're going to look at what doctors are prescribing and tell you what is the best treatment for you. But what they didn't realize is that in academia, we know you don't prescribe a triphasic birth control pill. You just do monophasic, because it's better that the hormones are like this rather than up and down, up and down, up and down. And so they ran their data on doctors prescribing throughout the United States, 200,000, 500,000 different, doctors and patients that had written birth control. And the number 2 recommendation they had was a triphasic birth control. And I was like, oh, you ran the research on what I would call crap data. You need to run the research on good data, patients that are really happy, patients that aren't sucking it up, patients who are reporting no side effects. So it's really important that, you run it on high academic, cutting edge data versus the all-comer data. Though it just depends, what is your research, but you need to know the limitations of what you're doing.
Yes, exactly. So I'm all about personalization. I think the main problem with the current healthcare system, pretty much everywhere, and specifically in the US, is the one-size-fits-all approach, which is absolutely not working, especially in countries where there are so many people coming from different regions with different background, different genetics. There has to be personalization if we want to be anything close to effective. And that's why most of the treatments are not effective and people don't see the same results. So we are different in so many levels, but it's specifically on our genetics. Having said that, bringing AI can help a lot, because each doctor has only 10 to 15 minutes to spend with each patient, and it's really hard to get that level of information. So AI facilitates that. However, on the other hand, people have hesitations and biases towards, oh, my data is getting collected and they are watching me and all of that. And I see that from like people that are users that we talk for Cybele Health. We provide also personalized treatments for your nutrition, for your mental health, for women. I mean, all aspects of body and mind connection, a holistic health approach. So how would you address that concern of our audience that AI being used in so many levels in our health and the data that's being collected from users to provide such personalized treatments?
I think the biggest concern for me would be just, would I be discriminated against because of my genetics? And I think, unfortunately, we don't live in a country right now with universal health care. Because if you have universal health care, then insurance would truly do what it's doing, which is put the risk on everybody versus the risk on the one person. And so if you have a gene that puts you at risk for dementia, then the insurance companies will be like, oh, she's going to cost us more later in life. Maybe. Because they've actually seen the AE is like 20% of the population, but it doesn't mean that everyone with that gene will get dementia. If you live a healthier life, if you keep your brain active, if you like to do Sudoku or something like that, or if you're a nun or a teacher that keep your brain really, really active, or a physician, or anybody who's constantly stimulating the brain with a podcast like all of us here, then you may decrease your risk of dementia. That would be my greatest fear, is that the insurance company starts to use this stuff to discriminate. And hopefully we can elect people that don't believe in discrimination, that will pass laws to protect us there. But really, I want people to have my genetics because I want them to use my genetics to find all the cures, so the cures will work for me. If you don't give us your data, then we can't help you. And that's kind of the same thing in adolescent medicine. When we kick the parent out of the room and we ask you about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, if you don't tell me the truth, that you're having sex or you're not having sex, I can't help you. If you don't give me your genes, then I can't see, oh, does this protein fit into your thing? Or does your body make this protein? Or is there this mutation? I can't help you. So you have to trust who you're giving the health data to. Know that there are many safeguards, HIPAA, which is the healthcare insurance portability, accountability, etc. And that as any medical institution, physicians and whatnot, we have to keep that data private. But you do also need to be aware of for-profit companies who may not have to adhere to HIPAA, or there's also in the abortion realm, there's crisis pregnancy centers who are not medical doctors. They are a nonprofit religious organization that ask your health information, but by law, they don't have to keep it private because there isn't a doctor. There isn't a nurse whose license is on the line if they break that law, or they just aren't held to that standard because they're nonprofit. So be careful of these crisis pregnancy centers.
Okay. So to wrap it up, we have to be careful about who we are getting access our data to and understand their licenses, what category they are, and their requirements
to protect it.
Yes. So you mentioned that you developed an algorithm. Are you making that available to all the doctors or OB-GYNs to access that? Or if someone like me wants to give it a try, should go to your platform specifically? And can you also tell us what's the journey when we start?
Great questions. So we are not sharing it with our competitors, obviously, because we are a for-profit company. Pandia Health, we can deliver birth control to all 50 states. So if your doctor writes a prescription and you have insurance, thanks to the Affordable Care Act, no copay, no deductible, aka free. Our whole goal is no one runs out of birth control on our watch. If you need a prescription, then you can utilize our doctors with our proprietary algorithm in 17 states. And we purposely picked the most populous states because we want to bang for buck, but also they happen to be fun states to visit. So we encourage birth control tourism. We are in California, Florida, Texas, New York, Nevada, if you're going to Vegas. So as long as you're in one of those airports and you're like, I'm in the airport right now and I'm filling out this form and I'm paying the money, then our doctor in that state can be like, oh, okay, legally I can write you a prescription, and then we can deliver the prescription to all 50 states. And you just got to get back to those states once a year, or if you have any follow-up questions, technically you should get back to one of the states, fill out our follow-up questionnaire, and then we can take care of you. It's $30 once a year to use our expert doctors with unlimited follow-up questions questions about birth control with the doctor. Know that we are asynchronous telemedicine. So there is no phone call, there is no video, but the research has shown people are actually more honest on a questionnaire when we say, when was your last period? Are you sure you aren't pregnant? How many partners have you had? We don't ask that last question, but if we were, they're more honest on a questionnaire than on video or phone because you might feel judged, etc. Plus, our patients love it because you can do the questionnaire 24/7, and our doctors love it because they can do it 24/7. We generally turn that around within 1 to 2 business days. We have a menopause platform, and that one is different pricing, and that has like a longer turnaround because our doctors consult each other and ask each other to make sure we get the best possible responses and take care of you on that platform. So you just fill out a questionnaire. We do need a blood pressure within the past 364 days. So you can go to the grocery store, the pharmacy. Know that most firefighters are also EMT. So you can call them up and say, I need a blood pressure check. Can I drop in now? And if they aren't chasing a cat up a tree or putting out fires, they might have time to sit down. Just make sure you sit down calmly for 5 minutes, because otherwise, if you're like hot fire person, then your heart rate will be up and your blood pressure will be up, and we don't want that number. We want a calm 5-minute blood pressure, not a hot fire person blood pressure.
So that's very easy. Everything is online, and there you can also get your blood pressure at home if you have the device. It's all available in most of the stores. Okay, that's very easy, and even like the bill is not that very reasonable amount for the whole year.
Yes, we wanted to charge more, but our competitors was giving it away, and so we're like, fine. We will cut our prices down. But the menopause, we know we can charge more, and so we do charge more. But also our doctors take a lot more time because there's a lot more symptoms and stuff like that with menopause.
And then in case, a client or a patient has any side effects, so there are follow-up questions and routines for that.
Yes. So everybody who's new to the birth control pill, new to making #periods optional, we do a 10-week follow-up. And then you can always ask questions anytime for the next 364 days. That $30 buys you a year of our time about birth control. Only about birth control, nothing else, because you only paid $30. If you want to deal with other stuff, and we're not your primary care doctor, we're just here for birth control and menopause, things that a lot of doctors don't know as much. I don't think anyone knows as much about birth control pills as our doctors and our company does. We're very few.
Absolutely. Yeah, at least I haven't heard this much information before about birth control pills and what's going inside a woman's body. But you also mentioned menopause, and we are having another podcast fully dedicated to menopause. But just a quick pick, what do you offer for women who are either premenopause or menopause?
Yes, so menopause is technically, it's a question of 12 months and you haven't had a period. So you don't know until you haven't had a period for 12 months. But if you're on the pill, patch, ring, the IUD, the implant, the shot, some of those you won't know because you don't have any period. But it's usually around 51 to 52 years of age. And so the way I like to think of it is your body takes away your estrogen, and then your arteries turn into what I call man arteries. They become hard, filled with clots, and then not as good. And your bones start to deteriorate and some brain fog. The most irritating thing are night sweats and hot flashes, which in the past we were taught as physicians to pat the woman on the shoulder. This will pass, suck it up. But now we've learned it lasts up to, like, on average, 7 years. 7 years of night sweats is not okay. 7 years of hot flashes is not okay. So #stop sucking it up. For that, the best treatment is systemic estrogen. And you can take estrogen by mouth or you can take it by patch. And then if you have contraindications to systemic estrogen, like you've had blood clots in the past or some other contraindication, then we can offer vaginal estrogen, which treats like painful sex or painful urination or kind of symptoms down there, what we call sandpaper vagina. That can be treated with topical estrogen. There are also antidepressants, which also work against the hot flashes, but not as good as systemic estrogen. And then there's also another new drug out there that works, but it's very expensive and unlikely to be covered by insurance most of the time. So we can give you all of those options. For those people heading towards menopause, if you're not 52 yet, but you're like 40 and you're having weird periods and whatnot, we can treat you in our menopause path if you want to address those symptoms. Or, but the treatment may be a estrogen progesterone pill, which is a birth control pill, but it's still hormonal treatment for your perimenopause symptoms. And I suggest just skipping your bleeds as you go into menopause, instead of the way I think of menopause is you run out of gas, and you can either run out of gas, or flooding, which a lot of women don't talk about, which is bleh. And I was like, oh goodness, does that happen once or does that happen several times? And my friend was like, I couldn't go out to friends' houses because I was afraid I would bleed on their furniture. And I was like, oh my God, don't hashtag suck it up. Like hashtag stop sucking it up. Please see a doctor. Like I can turn off your periods, and every 3 to 6 months we can be like, are you there yet? Are you there yet? Have you hit menopause? Or just, don't bleed and do as I do. And at 52, just switch over to the menopause treatment.
And then they can stay on these treatment until they hit the menopause and the process is complete. So
yeah, and you don't have to have any of these effects of menopause.
So why there hasn't been any, at least a conversation, a public conversation, or any study or treatment about it? So, yeah.
I think because only this year did a president pass a women's health research initiative, and is a Democrat and married to a woman who is an educator, but also we have been ignored in research. It was only, I believe, 1993 that they started requiring women be in research, and they didn't even require that we be 50%. They're just like, you have to include women. And I was like, no, I want for every dollar spent on non-women, equal for women, so that we can get our research up. You owe us all these years of research. And, they didn't want to discriminate. But as you know, our hormones make us very different. The breast, the uterus, all of this, and up and down and up and down. And even then, it's just really complex. As a researcher, I get it. I don't want to research in women because your hormones are up and down. Also in the United States, you could get pregnant and then you could sue me. And then I don't want to get sued. And then even if you're on the birth control pill, are you bleeding every 4 weeks? Are you not bleeding? Just too many variables. And so then you have to get even larger numbers to get significance because you have too many variables that you can't get anything significant. Or you glob it together and you really wonder, what does that mean when you glob people who are bleeding every 4 weeks versus every 12 weeks versus every year? Like these are very different. And I don't think anyone's taken any of these, very few take these variables into consideration when they're doing research, because your numbers, again, would have to be big in your studies, and it increases the cost when you have more people. And so I think us women of menopausal age have finally enough of us in power to demand that we get equal treatment. But in government, know that it's still only, I think, 15 to 20% of government officials at the national level are people with uteruses. And so we need to get to 50% of that. We need to get to 50% of startups, CEOs, boardrooms, places of power, so we can demand that we get the research that we need, that we get the attention, that we get the investment that we need. So another plug is we are the only women-founded, women-led, doctor-founded, doctor-led birth control delivery, given 2 companies that are equal. Please choose the one that's women-founded, women-led. And I think ours is better, so it's not even equal. Choose the better one that's women-founded, women-led. And then, if you have investment money, invest in women-founded, women-led companies. Know that you can invest through your donor advised fund. You can invest in a tax-deductible manner, and you can just invest. But know that your money has power. Know that women control a lot of the money. So ask, who is the CEO? Who is the founder? Who are the shareholders? Who is the beneficiary of where your money is going? Because our company, women founded, women owned majority, women led. So invest in us. Choose
awesome.
us.
Yes. It always takes women to support women's rights and to take an action on women's matters.
Yeah.
And there are so many areas that the women can benefit and as a foundation of the family. I always say women and mothers are a foundation of the family. They give birth to everything. They create the family. So we deserve to be treated better. And the
Yes.
second thing I wanted to raise is that always question if something is not right for you. Just because something is work for a group of people doesn't mean that it has to also work for you. We are different in so many ways and so many levels. So always question that. If your doctor doesn't know the answer, do the research. We are living in the area of information. So yeah, so hashtag stop sucking up. I
But
love
also
that.
be careful where you get your information, because TikTok is really negative on birth control
Yeah,
right
not
now.
TikTok.
Don't base it on one person's experience. Base it
Mm,
on, research from at least 50 to 100 people, and ideally a randomized clinical trial, but not always. With the menopause research, the one giant randomized clinical trial was deeply flawed. And so the other
mm,
observational studies have shown differently. And if anybody who's looking at menopause, read the book Estrogen Matters. It is written by an oncologist about how estrogen is safe for breast cancer, and it's safe for that. It helps your heart more than it hurts your heart, but you have to start it within 10 years of your last period, so ASAP, as opposed to wait
mm.
10 years, your arteries turn into man arteries, and then add estrogen, which usually causes blood clots. So that's why that study is really flawed. The average age there was 62, I believe, or 65,
Yeah.
and the average age of menopause is 52. So they started it way too late.
Is it like because the recent year menopause age has been shifted, or is
No,
it
it's just
just a
that
lack of?
study was, they didn't know that you needed to start it within 10 years,
Mm,
but now we know.
right. Okay, awesome. It was very informative and very fun and enjoyable to listen to your, thoughts and speaking about different aspects of birth control. Thank you very much for joining us. If you have any final words to our audience.
Yes. I wanted to make sure people saw my necklace. I love my dad's phrase. We know that there are a ton of
Nice.
allies out there. My father, my brothers, my husband, all of our major investors, Electus Capital, Precursor Ventures are all men, but we do have women too. We have Arlen Hamilton and the entire backstage crowd group and a lot of individual female angels. I want to thank all of you for investing in us, but we want the men to help us too. And so what my dad said is, we all came from the womb, respect the womb, exactly as you said. And
Right.
and please follow us on all of our socials, Pandia Health. The way to remember it is Pan is every and Dia is day. We want to be with you every day. We want to take care of you every day. It's also the Greek goddess of healing, light, and full moon. And we're all about goddesses and women's power. So follow us, Pandia Health, on all the platforms, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn. And then I'm trying to develop my TikTok and Insta follow, which is Dr. Sophia, Sophia Yen. So, and then follow everywhere.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for joining us. To our audience, stay tuned. We're going to have another great episode with Dr. Sophia Yen on menopause specifically, and how physical activities and different approaches can improve your life while you're going through the menopause. So, yeah, thank you again. And until next time, please take care of yourself.